Okay, here's the cabinet base back in position and being glued up. We've already made our test dry fit and checked our chassis uh, heights, mounting heights to the rest of the features, and they check out adequate. Uh, and then we'll give this a few hours to cure up and set up, and then we're going to finish sand it a little bit, and then we will clean up the interior of the cabinet, wipe it down real good, and we'll do the dark, what is it, the midnight blue that I typically use for these Zeniths on the inside. But that will be that will come after the initial sanding on the exterior of the cabinet. There is a few other issues that I've got to deal with right here on this speaker side. We get those fastened back up. The cragginess, I think we're just going to deal with those as we go along. We may do something with them, we may not. It's going to get a filler anyway, a clear filler. And hopefully we get some good features out of this with the combination of different stains. This side over here is adhered quite a bit better than the other side. It might be because all the openings so closely spaced and all the individual laminations here. Boy, that must have been quite a bit of work for somebody on a daily basis. I guess they made millions of these, millions and millions. Okay, so there is that for the cabinet. We're just going to have to play the waiting game now. All right, back to the chassis. We're getting ready to shoehorn this antenna coil back in, and there was an issue with it. The little hold down clip on one side broke loose. It pretty much broke loose when I went to pull it out of the chassis, off the chassis. But I didn't give it a second thought. I figured, well, there's enough there to hold it. Well, there wasn't. So I went to put it back in and went to clamp it down, and it just tore the rest of whatever it was holding on to loose. So what I usually do with these coils, or with these, coils, antenna coils, oscillator coils, any of the coils that are on a tube. Let's see if I can get a shot down that tube. What I do is I cut off a short section of dowel that is slightly larger than the inside diameter of the coil tube, and I shape it to fit nice and snugly, and we tamp it down in there. This one here took a little bit of glue because of all the caposis in it, and we just glued it up and let it cure up. Now this morning we are ready to rock. So that's what I generally do with those. Now the smaller coils, you can use the smaller diameter dowels and fit them in nice and snugly. And then if there's if there's a hole through the frame, you can use a screw to hold it into place, or use the original mount to hold it into place. So that's what we're going to do now. Now that that's ready to go, we're going to fit this in, and we're going to get this trimmer back on it, and then we're going to check the lengths of these connections and see if they're adequate enough to reuse, and if not, we're going to replace them with fresh wires. And then we're going to fit up the band switch in there and get some point-to-point measurements and see what we're lacking as far as getting that put back in. And then we're going to move into getting the oscillator section and trimmers back in. So we're working our way out of the corner. So stay tuned for more. Okay, now we're ready to start shoehorning this band switch back in. Band switch and compensating coil. And then after that, we're going to shoehorn this one in there, the oscillator, and get the interconnects to the wafer switches. Here is everything that goes back onto the wafer switch. Now what I have done here is located all the difficult soldering points in relationship to how this thing is going to go in, and the sequence of events that's got to happen for me to fit that back in there and get the connections hooked up without frustrating myself. And what I did was I broke it down to the front connections on the wafer, mid connections in the center wafer, and the rear connections on the back wafer. Front wafer, mid wafer, rear wafer. So I've located 3, 5, and 6 lugs on the front section. There is, counting from here, sorry for the fat skinny finger in the way, counting from this position here, this goes in that way with the coil facing me. First one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Typically, I found that to be the case on whether it's a Zenith, a Philco, a Waba, blah, 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 any of them that have the multi-section band switch. There are 6 on each side of the posts. So, based on what you find in the thing, figure out which one is they're talking about is the first. So here on the front, you'll see there is nothing in the 1 and the 2 position, but the 3 position has one. 4 position doesn't exist. 5 position has one. 6 position has one. That's on the front wafer. The mid wafer is on the opposite side of that one. So those 3 I need to get soldered on and tailed out so I can make the connections to wherever they go to in here. And I think most of these will go to that oscillator coil eventually. That oscillator coil will go roughly in that position right there in relationship to the rest of the components underneath the chassis. This is going to go right in that part. So these tails are going to allow me to make the connections to these connections once I get this up and in position. I don't have to mount it in there unless I have enough room that I can get a soldering iron in there and get it soldered in. Otherwise, it'll be just loosely held into place up there. I'll make my connections to the thing. When I get all the connections done on the bottom side of it, I'll go ahead and mount it and take care of the rest of the residual connections on the, well, actually the bottom. This is actually the bottom of the chassis. So, and then I did the same for the mid connections. Mid connections only have two, 1 and 2 lug. The 1 and the 2 lug. Now that one there I can get to relatively easy before anything else goes in there. And on the rear connection I have 1, 3, 4, and 6 lug. Here's 1, 3, 4, and 6. And that's going to be down in the bottom down there. But I think there's enough room behind this thing here that I can easily make the connections to the wire and or other components that tie to these lugs. Now, I went through and I dressed out all the remaining wires, and when I say dressed, I mean stripped and tinned. Now, all you other old fogies out there that are familiar with this know that that's what I mean when I say prepped or dressed. It means the tips are exposed and they're tinned, ready to solder. So that way I don't have to stop. I can just grab, solder, grab, solder, grab, solder, and be done with it. And I don't have to sit there and wait for the gun to heat up and wait for the solder to flow. I can get it done quick and easy. Only thing I gotta watch out is don't get that tip around the coils. You know, and that's the reason why I run these out, so I can get access to them without painting myself in the corner. So that's for all you newbies out there who are thinking about jumping into this with both feet. When you dress the wires out, get them ready for solder. That means tin them up, expose them, and get them routed. Pay attention to any service bulletins that are associated with the schematic or the chassis for wire dress. Wire dress is going to be pretty important. Anything that's twisted up like that, leave it twisted up. Or if you have to replace it and they're crusty wires, twist it up after you solder them in relatively the same way, and route them in the same direction and location as the originals. Okay, so that's going to be pretty much it. We're going to get this started up later on. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It is about 90, low 90s out. I'm going to go in with Doggy. We're going to sit down, cool down a little bit, and then later on, after I give Doggy his meal, we're going to come back out here before it gets dark and try to get this slipped into position and preliminary connections done to it. I still got to get this, in case anybody noticed, I still got to get this Krusty the Clown wire over here replaced. But we're coming close, so get ready for that. See you on the next one. Thanks for watching.